Okay, folks, this is a pretty good, well-developed muscadine vine. It has a single trunk coming up from its base, and it has several side shoots that are growing off, kind of like advanced sucker growth. It does have that single trunk going all the way up and in fairly good spiral fashion until it gets up to here to the top where it splits off. This is fairly common. If I were to clip it beneath or above any one of these nodes right here, like I said, typically above a node, it could split off there. It could grow as a single vine, or it could decide to turn sideways twice. They do what they want to do, but I anticipate one thing when I'm pruning the new stuff. I anticipate that if I were to clip the top and it's not already dead, there's a good chance that I might get some split growth. I can see a nice fresh bud right here. I don't want to cut that off. I'm looking to go up top and then go sideways. I can see another section that has a couple of other buds, but it's weaker growth. At this point, I can make the selection to cut this back to here. It's a high cut. It's not going to impact the plant negatively at this point in time. And my decision-making skills have been pretty good in the past. So that's one area I like to mention, is the top of your new plants, your new trees, your new shrubs. Oftentimes when we cut them or top them, they split. They'll send up 2, maybe 3 different leaders. You get more growth that's going in different directions, and that's not really what we're looking to do. Also, if it looks like I'm not quite looking at y'all, it's because the sun is just burning up my right eye. Let's talk about the bottom growth. I mentioned that we don't want a whole lot of bottom growth because we want a single spiral trunk straight up. You can do a single straight trunk too. I just don't like single straight trunks. I was maintaining 800 plus vines at the other vineyard, and I saw some things about straight trunks that I didn't like. I had an opportunity to visit a vineyard that had spiral trunks, and the gentleman told me that the reason he had spiral trunks is twofold. Firstly, it affords the tree trunk or the grapevine trunk to have much better visual acuity when it comes to seeing the sun. Fully 360 degrees of the vine will see the sun at some point during the day, and that's a good thing. When you grow it straight up in the air, straight up like a single stick, it's going to get sunlight across one side of it. If it's bathed in it, it's drenched in it, it'll be fully illuminated. If it's not, because the angle of the sun is too low, like 2 particular times in the season, it's not always going to dry out the same way, and you'll get moss growing on one side or the moist side. It happens. And it's something that I've seen time and time again on muscadines. They usually have some other companions that are not necessarily parasitic to them, but to me, they certainly change the way that they look and the appearance. And in this case, I really want this zone to be really, really beautiful. If you're looking really closely, you can see this is also where the Egyptian walking onion stock is. This is planted last fall, and the stuff is looking fantastic. So let's talk a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead right now at the moment. I'm going to cut the lower growth because we don't need it. I don't need grapes growing horizontally on the ground. And I'm going to pick one of these up and show it to y'all. It's been cut fairly close to the trunk, near what's referred to as the healing ring. I do it intuitively and I do it quickly because I've been responsible for pruning a lot of these things. Y'all can see the nodal growth there. When I was talking about cutting above or below a node, there's one right there. It's that simple. It's not difficult. For those folks who like to cut below the node, it would be cut here, and you can see that 1 inch to the next node. This tends to dry up, rot, and then fall off. But I don't like to do it this way because really what I'm hoping to do is to cut it back here, and I want it to grow straight off the end. Sometimes it does that, sometimes it doesn't, you know? You just got to work with it and see what works best for you. Anyway, it is an Eden bed, so there that goes. Anyway, I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm going to take the remainder of this stuff off because this is a fairly healthy plant. I'm not as concerned for it as I would be if it was pretty barren of branch. Yeah, look at this. We're making one single stick. I also want to mention, folks, we don't use any kind of harsh chemicals in the garden. It's just not my way. There's no Roundup being used here. We don't even like to use insecticides. I make my own concoctions of insecticides. that are all from natural things, plant-based. It's just the way I like to do it. If y'all want to use heavy chemicals in your garden, I can't guarantee your results will be the same. I've got this branch right here, it's turning the other way. It's not going to amount to anything. It doesn't help the picture in one way or another. It really does nothing for me. I think that y'all can probably make that out. I'm in a ray of sunlight. Cut it back here. I'm going to cut this one back here. I'm going to leave both of these in place, but watch what I do to them next. Okay, so single cut here, single cut here. I've been asked for these clippings. There's some people in my area here who know how to propagate just with something like this. A little bit of root tone and a little TLC, and sometimes you can turn it into another plant. So we'll just put those back there for now, and here we go. Well, I was talking about not cutting yourself short on options. Technically, we have two viable options here, this one and this one. They can both be selected, and then at the end of the season, the dominant one can be chosen. We also have two viable options right here. There's a lot of little bud growth, so I'm not taking anything else off. I like to consider each one of these buds as like a dollar bill. Would you want to just throw those dollar bills into the wind? I don't think so. So this guy's going to basically stay like this. It may grow a few flowers, it may grow a few leaves. I'm going to take the dead branch off, the little dead bit there, and searching and scanning for anything else that looks like it's dead. I'm going to leave it as is. So y'all can see a fairly conservative approach towards pruning it back. We have three legitimate options for growing upwards, and they can be reduced to only one by the time this gets up to the top line, and that way we know we're going to be able to grow a cordon left and a cordon right. If this point right here was at 5 feet, I could have a cordon here and a cordon here, pulled left and pulled right, trained in both directions. If this point right here was at 5 feet, same situation. I can train this one over that way and that one over that way. Just basically making a gentle little curve right there. And once I turn that baby horizontal, that's when the magic begins. Okay, so last and final step for this baby is to give it some turn, run it around, get it up to the top, and I don't believe this is going to be an issue, but more than likely I'm going to bring that up to the top as well. So a lot of times I like to start in the middle, keep it out of my hair, and quick clip, let it go, wrap it around. Be sure that you're clear, and the tapener will do pretty much all of the work for you. Same situation right there. I just grabbed it, run it around the back, and try and staple it somewhere safe so you don't scun or scratch the vine. You want to have kind of soft hands for this sort of stuff. So again, I'm being gentle up here, and I'm just going to group them together and hold them near the top. Pop another one into place, and I'll let it go. It usually rebounds a bit, and I don't know, you know, I might put another one here. Anything that you can do to get it to be held stably up is going to be a good thing. As you can imagine, when you've got a coil like this, if this was to fall over, the coil will take some of that. It'll take some of that abuse, and the plant is less likely to break right at the bottom. So that's really reason number two, is that when you coil it, spiral coil it around a central pole, the plant tends to be a little bit more resilient because it behaves like a spring as opposed to a rigid structure. So from my standpoint, having somewhat of a background in engineering, I like things to be resilient, and I like things to be resistive to the forces of nature. The north is over there, and the wind is blowing this way. So I got to be careful about this stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one more wrap right here, and basically that's it. So throughout the season, this will grow upwards and it will grow out. I will probably continue to take some of the small sucker growth off the bottom in some of our intermediate in-season prunings, and encourage the rest to continue to grow up. I'll be back out here again with the tapener. I'll be back out here spiraling it all the way up, and then in the end, if you can imagine, basically what we're talking about with spiral trunk is, in 5 feet of space, the length of the spiral trunk will probably be closer to 6 feet. In my mind, that's a good thing. It is not necessarily traveling any further up, so it doesn't have to deliver nutrients higher. The phloem and the xylem still work the same way they do, and you get a lot of grapes once they start going horizontal. So that's what I mean by magic. All right, let's move on. Maybe I can show you one more before we lose our sunshine. How about we look at one that doesn't have as much growth on it? Could that work? This one here is a pretty good example. It's a little bit in the shade. So what do we got? I've got some growth coming out low underneath the chips right here. I want to remove that. There's some low sucker growth. If I thought that this was actually rooting, I might actually clip it off and replant it. So if I just scooch the dirt out of the way, I'll get a better idea. It's not really dirt, but there's a little dirt in this. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clip that because I don't think there's anything viable for me to associate with. That's gone. I've got some side growth. We'll pull this guy off the pole. And I've got what looks like two potential trunks to utilize. One of them seems to have a little bit of a dead tip on the end. I'm examining these. I'm going to bring the camera in and show you too. That one has a little bit of a dead tip too, and you know, they might have got a little frostbite. And this one right here actually looks really, really good. It does. So this is the dominant trunk, and I'm going to go ahead and consider it to be the one that we're hoping to make it to the top. So now, that being said, y'all can see this is about a 2-foot vine, and these guys right here are 6 to 8 inches shorter, and that one is maybe 4 to 6 inches shorter. So I want to keep another one for now, just in case this one doesn't make it. This is going to sort of be a backup. It's a little bit taller than this one. There's still green stick, but this one, like I said, it seems like it might have a little bit of a dry tip. These guys do, but it'll be okay. All right, so I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to bring you over here to show you what I'm talking about. There we go. Okay, so this is my dominant. It's not very clear, but there is a little bud on top. It's really small, folks. I mean, the bud is like maybe a 1/16 of an inch, and I'm kind of holding it, and I don't have that as steady a hand. But anyway, I wanted you to see that, and then I can kind of show you this tip maybe. There. See that? There's a bud down a little bit lower than the tip. So I'm grading right now, okay? We're just grading. So it's a choice between those two. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these, remove this, remove this. I'm going to remove, I believe I selected this one here to take off all the way back to here. And then we're going to allow the center one to be dominant, and we're going to allow the one on the right to be backup. Fairly simple. Start out by cleaning the trunk down at the base. Make our selection. Those are our keepers. And that one's going. I'm also going to remove some small sucker growth down here. I do want this particular vine to devote as much of its attention towards growing upwards as is possible. A little 360 wrap. Head to the middle. Head to the bottom. Top. There's not a whole lot of dead stuff on my grape stock, so I'm kind of pleased to see that. You can also put these on tighter too. I do come out here sometimes and find that they may have fallen down, so if you leave them a little bit loose, it kind of gives the plant a little bit of rebound ability instead of being pinned in place. We get some pretty high winds here. If you've watched my videos before, I'm sure you've seen that. But that baby's good to go right there. I'll take the time, just 1 second, to talk about feeding. Currently I am using some time-release fertilizer, and That's basically just to get them established in, and afterwards it'll just be soil food web stuff for the most part. I will do an occasional wet feeding with fish emulsion to the area directly below each of the lines. I'm going to do so with the intent of encouraging the root system to grow in the same direction as the vines up above. If you really, really stand back, you'll look at one of these Eden gardens, you realize that all of it is fertile. So we're going to continue doing it the way we have done it in the past. I have the main grapes that are up there at the main garden, and y'all have seen those. They're massive, they're huge, they're ginormous. There are also muscadines. Some people call them plum muscadines, if I'm not mistaken. But if they will grow the way they will grow up there with the minimal amount of care that I give them, and I'm going to take y'all up there to close out the video. I'm going to show you what they look like. I'll do some snapshots of what these guys look like after they've been cared for in this way.